Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to what I call the panel of many, many moving parts. My name is Bill Whitelaw, and I'm here in two capacities. First, I'm very honored to be able to moderate what I think is going to be a terrific conversation, but I'm a supporter of the Clean Resource Innovation Network, and we're very proud at CRIN to be the Western machine for this great series of climate conversations we've been having in Canada this week. But I'm also a very proud member of the 10 Peaks Innovation Alliance Board of Directors. And today we're going to go from Lacombe to Brazil, to Calgary, and to Red Deer through a series of really important conversations that really put a real focus on the climate and the next generation of the folks who will really do the heavy lifting on climate matters. And I'm looking at Brock and Libby and Stein, and I'll introduce them in a second here. But we're going to kick off with this other piece of context. As we're sitting here in the Energy Transition Centre in downtown Calgary, our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and the Premier of our province, Danielle Smith, have signed a historic agreement that puts the climate in the crosshairs of how the provincial and federal governments will collaborate in the next few years on building a pipeline and how we're going to sequester carbon and do all those things. And when I look at these three brilliant students that we have in our midst, they're the ones who are going to live with that reality and how that MOU actually gets played out over time. And so we'll explore those themes. And so, as I said, we're going to go from Lacombe Composite High School to Red Deer, Alberta. We're down here in Calgary, but we're also going to visit Brazil and the COP, Conference of the Parties 30, from which Steve Schultz and Libby and Brock have just returned. But we're going to talk about bees and bee health and Olds College, and we're going to talk about the Center for Global Education and Cool Manifesto. So there's a lot of moving parts, and we're going to pull a lot of threads through all of this whole conversation. And again, we're just part of a series of great conversations that have been held this week through what CRIN has done working with TMX Group on the Canada Climate Exchange Week set of conversations. But what we'll start, because I think the foundation for all of this is the 10 Peaks Innovation Alliance. And I'm pleased to introduce, and I'll introduce the speakers in depth as I get to them, but Dagmar and I have worked together. She's the founder and executive director of the 10 Peaks Innovation Alliance. She's also the treasurer of the CRIN Board of Directors. And we do so many great things at 10 Peaks that enable the activities of Brock, Libby, Stein, and Steve. And so give us a framework of what the 10 Peaks Innovation Alliance is, and shamelessly promote our fall conference will be based on the 2 United Nations COPs.
Thanks for that introduction, Bill. Yes, 10 Peaks Innovation, I founded it 5 years ago. I was inspired by my son, who was in grade 9 at the moment. Realized he didn't really know a whole lot about clean tech and all the things that we're doing in Alberta to reduce emissions and what we're doing about climate change. And so I thought, well, yeah, like we can hold some amazing conferences and have some students come and hear directly from experts on like what is going on. And so at 10 Peaks Innovation, we kick off the year with this amazing conference. It's held in October at the Red Deer Polytechnic. We're going to hold our 5th one in October. And the students have a chance, 525 of them, to come for free and hear from 18 speakers and attend possibly up to 12 workshops. And that kicks off our year. And after that, then we have a case competition where students can receive up to $500 in a micro grant for any sustainability project that they might have. And from there, then we also have summer camps where we have robotics across the province, down here in Calgary, but also in Red Deer and in Lacombe. And so those are just some of the things that we do to promote a more sustainable future with our youth here in Alberta.
So hint, hint, give us the tagline for the fall conference.
Oh, it's one of my favorite topics. The theme is growing forward together, how climate collaboration and biodiversity are in Alberta's future.
So, and I'm going to use this great segue to my fellow board member and wonderful educator, Steve Schultz, because Steve, as you sort of frame up why the 10 Peaks effort is so important to the education system in Alberta, but also, help take people to school a bit on there are 2 types of COPs, the Conference of the Parties. There's a COP that focuses on biodiversity, but I think the COP that focuses on climate gets all the headlines in the mainstream media, right? And yet they're 2 important fulcrums for important conversations of the linkage between climate and biodiversity health.
Yeah, that is correct. We've had the fortunate to go to both. So Brock actually attended the Biodiversity COP 16 last year in Cali, Colombia. And although biodiversity and climate change are two separate topics, they're intertwined, and biodiversity is affected by climate. So if we don't address the climate issues, then we're going to be losing our biodiversity. And what I think is really powerful is that the next year's conference is going to have a focus on biodiversity.
COP31.
No, our
COP17.
10 Peaks,
the 10 Peaks, of course,
conference
yeah,
is going to have a focus on biodiversity as one of their streams.
But as we move to Brock and Libby here, and I introduce them, this COP that you've just returned from the last few weeks had a strong biodiversity context to it as well, right? That
is correct, yeah. It was called the COP of the Amazon, and was situated at the waters of the Amazon River. And so we had the privilege of taking a boat trip down the Amazon and ended up in indigenous settlement and saw some of the indigenous ways of knowing, but also ways of living, which was a really, really powerful experience for my students. And as you all know, the Amazon is the centerpiece of biodiversity for the world.
So, and that's critically important. And I know I interviewed Brock last year based on COP16 in terms of we had a great conversation, and that conversation actually got beamed into COP29, right, in terms of the cool stuff that 10 Peaks and CRIN were doing on that. But so we'll come to Steintans and his Beewise application, because there's a really important climate context to pollinator health overall. And so stay tuned for a second. And he's coming to us from Lacombe. He can't be with us here in the Energy Transition Center. But I want to go right now to Brock Johnson and Libby Ladisser on, you've just been in Brazil. How cool is that, right? At Belém, to Steve's point, at the headwaters of the Amazon. And, you went into the blue zone, Libby, right? And then I'm going to get you guys to explain all that. But I want to set the stage by talking about the cool stuff that goes on at Lacombe Composite High School. And you're both members of the Ecovision Club, which is part of the framework here. So, Libby, I'll start with you. So give us some context around what the Ecovision Club is and what it does, and then lead us down into your very cool agrivoltaics efforts. And it all ties together, right?
Do you want to talk about the agrivoltaics?
I can talk about the agrivoltaics, but
okay.
I can talk about the agrivoltaics with you.
I'll go over the really cool projects we have at our school. So Ecovision is an after-school club where students can come and participate in taking care of the really awesome programs we have at our school. We have 3 main classes, which is beekeeping, and a greenhouse class, along with a goats class. We also have an indigenous garden with 26 native species. We also have solar panels, so Ecovision takes care of those. But we also participate in conferences and advocacy work. We also have our micro business that we sell our products from our programs at, and but we have a new project coming along.
So before we leave you and get to you, Brock, on that, reflect on some of the conversations you had with your peers in Brazil in terms of talking about what your school is doing, all the cool activities you get to all focus of that biodiversity and environmental context. Mm-hmm. Did you find out that Lacombe Composite High School was a leader in this space in a global context, or are schools doing around the world doing similar things?
It's so diverse what you can do for the climate. So there were so many neat projects that some students were doing. So there was this one school who had made a biodegradable plastic and implemented it into their school. There's another student who's creating a project right now for a net zero air filtration system within their school to combat the wildfire smoke that we often deal with and the city smog that they deal with. So it was diverse, and I think we ranked somewhere in the middle. There were some schools that oh my goodness, it was so neat. And then other schools who are still on their journey.
Perfect. And so you come back with this whole, and you don't have to say this, and Brown knows your teacher because he's sitting there, but no, but you came back with a bunch of tremendous ideas that could complement some of the stuff that Ecovision is doing, right?
100%.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. So let's move to that specific agrivoltaics, because that's a really unique Alberta advantage thing. And for folks who maybe aren't aware of it, that agrivoltaics is a unique form of solar farming where you're actually either growing crops or feeding livestock in a specially designed solar panel installation. And it's gaining a lot of traction here in Alberta, but you guys have a neat twist on that theme in terms of some of the crop dynamics, Brock. So speak to that, what's going to go on this fall, or what is going on this fall, and what will continue to go on with your efforts on that space.
Yeah, so once we started research on possibly implementing an agrivoltaic system into some of the projects at our school, we realized there wasn't a lot of agrivoltaics happening in our area. We found a lot of statistics found in other parts around the world, but there wasn't really a ton of information in Canada about like how the different tilts of, like, for example, one of the projects we're going to do to find out those specific statistics. We are going to take some of our berry bushes and raised beds, and we are going to put a solar panel on stilts above it. So what the solar panel should do is that not only will it absorb sunlight and turn it into energy, but also it's going to provide shade to those plants, which is especially useful during the summer months when it gets really hot and could burn the plant. And Alberta is known for its droughts, and this is supposed to also reduce water usage and the water required to keep that plant sustained. And we also have another system we're hoping to try, which is having a sort of shade or protective base for the goats partially made out of solar panels during the summer, so they can stay cool while also still staying outside. And yeah, I believe some of the collaborators we have is like Phase 3 Electric. We're going to look for some collaborators, some students coming out of the University of Calgary.
Yeah. And
I think there's a couple more, but I can't think of them all. There's so many people who are willing to collaborate with us. We are so grateful. And once we get these statistics, we are going to share them with similar schools, and hopefully, if they would like, do similar projects like this with better information than what we had when we started.
Perfect. I know a friend of mine actually in southern Alberta grazes almost 5,000 head of sheep under Canada's largest solar farm just in Vulcan County. And his point, he would agree with you entirely. They love the shade in the hot summer months, and it has a tremendous impact on soil health and all those things. So you're locking in, you're very timely in terms of your efforts. So we're going to come back and we're going to fit that agrivoltaics conversation and back into the manifesto, which is kind of cool. And but we're going to go to Stein right now, and let's talk about pollinator health and some of the wonderful things you're doing, because, I mean, you're about to finish high school and go on to a great post-secondary career on the bee dynamic. So talk to us, Stein, about Beewise. And on the screen now, we've got in front of us the great, your sensing technology on an actual hive. So give us some background about Beewise, and then what's the future focus of the next steps as you commercialize this?
Yeah, so the Beewise idea came along the first year I was in high school. So my first year in high school, I joined the beekeeping program, and right off the bat, 3/4 of our hives died. So Mr. Schultz came to me, because I was also in robotics at the time, came to me and said, let's make a system that can monitor temperature, humidity, and CO2 for the beehives. This way we don't have to open up the hives in the winter, but we can adjust their ventilation without looking inside.
So maybe help us understand, and I think most of us know this intuitively when we drive around Alberta and we see all these hives strategically located, and they're so critical to the way pollination health goes and the way the farming season goes based on hive health. So what are some of the things that you've learned through the whole process since you've been involved in Beewise? And I'm going to get Steve here to sort of flesh out some of the things, but what were some of the things that amazed you in understanding that why we need healthy hive system?
Aside from the cold, how resilient that the bees were. They can take quite a bit, again, except for cold. But you can do a lot, take a lot of honey from them, and they will be able to build that back up. That really amazed me.
And so your technology helps us understand that resilience potential by at an even deeper level to ensure the hive health.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, Steve, how does that, the work that Stein and some of the other students do, how does that fit into the curriculum overall? Because Lacombe is knowing how this stuff gets integrated into the classroom, and it's, even though it's after hours and curriculum and this kind of stuff, it all ultimately feeds the classroom system, right?
Yeah, so here is a startling statistic. In Canada last year, 16,000 agricultural jobs were not filled because a lot of reasons. So one of the reasons that I've discovered is that students don't know about these opportunities. And some of these jobs are high tech, and some of these jobs are also dealing with the environment and things that kids and students are passionate about. And so it has always been my goal to, when we build a project, that we must build a curriculum around the project. And so when we heard about colony collapse in the early 2014, 2015, my students came to me and said, yeah, we need to raise bees. They're vital in 2/3 of our food is pollinated by bees and other pollinators. And in Alberta, canola would not exist if it wasn't for our pollinators. So we built a bee program. We started with our solitary bees, and then we brought in our honeybees. And I approached Olds College and some individuals in the community, and we came up and built a first of its kind in Canada curriculum for beekeeping. We've now passed that on to at least a dozen other schools, and they're incorporating beekeeping in their high school. But what brings me hope is that we're now meeting that need in our community and providing skilled labor for our farmers and our agricultural community.
I know, and I'm going to get Dagmar to reflect on this later in the conversation, but there is a gap between the way industry communicates its labor needs. And I know at every conference we hold at 10 Peaks, the students are just amazed when our speakers tell them things and say, how come nobody's talking to us about the career opportunities in that space? And Stein, I'm going to come back to you because I want to hear the Olds College dimension next, which links to exactly what Steve said. But Libby, when you were down and you were talking to your peer groups and other folks at COP about the Beewise program, I'm sure you heard a lot back around ecosystem issues on insects, say, for example, or other forms of wildlife from other, what did you learn from your COP experience about challenges that other jurisdictions or other countries are, and next generation leaders like yourself, are they facing in terms of problems with the climate and the biodiversity system?
Yeah, I think a huge part of CGE is the Center for Global Education, right? Like we all, as students, felt that climate education wasn't enough. Climate-wise, a lot of our issues were diverse, but the same in a way, right? We all deal with wildfires. We all are dealing with drought. We're all dealing with flooding, right, in different ways, but in the same way. And I think not enough people are talking about that.
So on that, tell us about, frame up for us CGE and what it is, and that'll guide us to a discussion on the manifesto, right, in terms of which I think is an important output from the whole conference, right?
Totally. So CGE is an organization who's put this program together called Decarbonize. They bring students from all over the world to do things like COP, right? So they had brought 12 different countries, 32 students to COP this year, but we were also representing, I think it was 10,000 students and 80 different countries. Yeah, so they work with a lot of schools. The students that get picked have to come from a background with environmental education, from schools that have environmental education or projects. But yeah, they bring students together to be able to do these amazing things and have a voice and to talk about environmental sciences inside the curriculum and things like that.
So you and Brock, and by extension Lacombe and Steve, you're part of this global nexus of these really important conversations. Now, I don't know if the camera can see. Brock, pull up your T-shirt and show us a great CG T-shirt in terms of it. And there we go. Perfect. So like, let's take a deeper dive. Libby mentioned the Decarbonize Manifesto. What is that actually? Right. I mean, it seems self-evident on the surface, but take us inside to some of the details on it. Start with you, Brock, and then we'll riff back and forth off the two of you here.
What's your favorite demand?
What's the big demand in that?
Yeah. Sorry, I was focused on my shirt.
It's a cool shirt, man.
Yeah, so my favorite demand, I've said this so many times, but my favorite demand is ironically the first one, because it's listed first because it seems like it should be the most obvious, but I believe it's also the most important, at least to me. It's that climate change education should be a universal right, and the reason I believe that so much is just because climate change is a universal problem, so it wouldn't make sense if it worked only one way.
Oh, that's well said, well said. So I'm going to ask you, Libby, this provocative question. So Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, and Danielle Smith, our Premier, are here in town, and the odds of us bumping into them in downtown Calgary are slim to none today. But if you had a chance, if you bumped into them on the sidewalk, what would you tell them, what would be your favorite component of the Decarbonize and the manifesto that you would say, you know, you two as political leaders need to pay attention to this stuff?
That's a really,
What's your favorite demand?
yeah. I think when it comes to that question specifically, this is not my favorite demand, but I think in context, funding, not only teachers, but student initiatives when it comes to climate actions, right? Our teachers, they need to be invested into, and our youth need to be invested into, and not only in time and effort, but also in money, you know? So I think probably that in context of that, but yeah.
No, that's a perfect answer,
Yeah.
because of course what it really talks about is you don't get climate action or any climate dynamics without the proper funding, right?
Exactly.
In terms of, and the funding comes in many forms in terms of it. Did you find that was a common theme in your peer group in CGE, that governments tend not to fund effectively enough around the world?
Definitely, yeah. There's definitely a lack of funding and lack of time and effort put into these projects, and it doesn't only have to be environmental, right? Like it's the lack of initiative and lack of, not initiative, investment towards youth in general, you know, and so, we're feeling that.
Yeah, and so I'm going to, you know, and that's a gap we try and fill at the 10 Peaks Innovation Alliance.
Yeah, you guys do great.
In terms of trying to fill the gaps. And again, we're always astounded when we talk to the teachers and the students about the massive number of gaps that there are in the curriculum process and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna get you guys to think about your COP30 experience, and you know pretty soon your high school days will be over, and you won't be like Steve and I in that Bruce Springsteen song "Glory Days" and reminiscing. But you're going to have to make some pretty important choices career-wise coming up soon in terms of continuing the impact. And I know, Stein, I'm going to give Brock and Libby a few seconds to think about this, but I know you're off to Olds College, which is another phenomenal asset we have in this province, right? In terms of, so talk us, what are you going to do? How are you going to be wise at Olds College next year?
Well, I'm going to join the precision agriculture program that they have. This precision agriculture, it allows me to learn about how technology is being built inside of agriculture. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was so you know on the surface it's sort of precision agriculture kind of suggest what it is, but give us some from you live in rural Alberta and you see the equipment in the fields all the time, and we're farming differently and we're farming more accurately than we've ever farmed before. But give our audience some examples of what precision agriculture. I mean, Olds has its phenomenal smart farm and all the things that it does there, but bring it to life for folks who only see a combine when they drive by it in those canola fields that have been pollinated by healthy bees.
Yeah, so now you see those big farms with 3 combines, but each combine needs to be operated by a person per combine. But we're heading into the direction where the combines would be able to operate themselves. We're not there yet, but we're heading that direction. And a bunch of those types of things.
Yeah, I know Olds does have some massive autonomous farm equipment on the farm in terms of that. So, well, good luck with that. So, what about you two? I'll start with you, Libby. What are you going to do next year?
Oh my goodness. So, I'd like to hopefully get into plant research, work in a nice research station somewhere, and hopefully bring a more sustainable way of farming to our agriculture here in good old Alberta. Yeah.
So, and just before we go to Brock, what was it? Did you have any epiphanies down when you were in Brazil about the why and the more, you're really recommitted to that aspiration in the sense of stuff you heard and stuff you experienced?
Yeah. The farming in Brazil is quite different. And even all over the world, is very different. I think in Alberta we do quite well at talking about sustainable farming, but of course we still have a ways to go. But after talking to other people from other countries, it really cemented the fact that we need sustainable agriculture and sustainable food, because there were some people from some countries that dealt with food insecurity.
Absolutely.
And if I can do something about that, I'd love to.
Well, of course, you were visiting one of the world's sort of epicenters of the relationship between food security and deforestation, right? In terms of the big challenges. So, and so any particular school or institution you have there's a lot of great choices in Alberta. We've got some phenomenal post-secondaries to do that kind of research at.
I'm thinking U of A.
U of A, yeah. A fine institution. What about you, good Sir Brock?
Short answer, I don't 100% know. Long answer, I'm kind of in this weird space right now. Like I'm technically in, we like to call it grade 13. It's just a fancy name for upgrading classes. Yep. Because I didn't really know what I should do after high school, because I definitely have a lot of opportunities I can do, but it's almost overwhelming because I've joined Ecovision. I've been given so much more opportunities than I would have otherwise, and there's so much to choose from. And what I have decided on for now is that this next year, after this year, I'm going to look for a job in the field of agricultural tech or greenhouse work, something in the field, and work work in that field for about a year and see if I like it. I have a feeling I will, but hey, I'm basically just putting it off right now because I would like to make some money as well. It wouldn't hurt.
No harm in that aspiration. But you've all said some really important things, and I'm gonna be provocative here, and I'm gonna get you to challenge the older folks on the panel. And so, again, I'll go to Libby first and give Stein and Brock a few moments to think about this. So when we plan the curriculum, the content at 10 Peaks, it's a bunch of adults sitting around. And fortunately, we've got a great teacher and we've got great learning instructors. But sometimes I often reflect: are we actually providing content that the students really want to engage with? So if you had a chance to help us design the fall conference around these themes of biodiversity and climate, what would, speaking on behalf of the 525 students who will be coming, what kind of advice would you give us in terms of how to bring climate to the foreground?
Oh, yeah.
Besides having you come and speak.
I think so much of the information we get is so overwhelming sometimes. As youth, I know so many people who I talk to were overwhelmed. Yeah. We grew up with this climate crisis happening and told that we're going to be the ones to fix it. So I think doing things in a digestible and still light and airy way, where it's not based on, you're not leaving kids with, hey, this is what's going on. You're leaving kids with, hey, this is what's going on, and here's how we're going to fix it, and here's how we're going to be sustainable, right?
Well put.
Yeah.
She's on the board. No, seriously, I mean, that's such great advice, because I know we get great speakers, and we got those 18 processes that we got, but sometimes I wonder, did we leave enough actionable steps, in terms of, it's great to hear all this stuff, but where's the solution in the presentation, right? And so what would you tell us, Brock?
I'm going to bring up my second favorite part of the manifesto.
Oh, okay.
Which is within the climate change curriculum. It should feature projects, practically, like hands-on projects for the students to show what they have learned, and this could also be the opportunity to apply it to their local environment. The analogy I like to use is that you can learn about something a lot through a screen or the internet and stuff like that, but it's a whole other field when you're working with it with your own hands and using it practically. And the example I like to use is that you could spend 10 straight years learning about the perfect way to be a driver, but it's not like when you first get in the car, you're going to be that good of a driver. And I feel like, that's how I feel.
I can tell you 40 years later, I'm still not that good of a driver, right? To your point in terms of, but that's wonderful perspectives. Stein, what would you tell us?
Well, I would say challenge the kids more. It's not being said enough that it's easy to join, easy to help. It only requires effort. It's not being said enough.
That's well put. I think I'm going to get a T-shirt with that on it. So yeah, we'll call it the Stein shirt at the fall conference. But I think we've got 3 speakers already lined up in terms of, but yeah. Dagmar, just picking up on what Libby and Brock and Stein have said, sort of reflect on and help the audience understand around some of the reflections that you and I and the other board members and our committees and all our volunteers go through in trying to come up with a timely program that's going to be because I'm looking at Steve here, I'm going to talk about what's useful to teachers right now, because it's tough being a student and it's even tougher being a teacher right at the moment. And but reflect on the back and forth we have around what the perfect program could look like.
Well, every year we think about a theme that we think resonates with the student body and the youth And biodiversity has been a big one. It always comes up, and it weaves in and out of all things. And it really hit home for me when my son was in grade 9, and he didn't know anything that was happening in Alberta. I'm a big proponent of clean tech. Corinne, who is leading this initiative here, and all the organizations and businesses that are working on reducing emissions, methane reduction, all the clean tech that's out there. And if we don't know about it, then our students don't know about it. And so I always think about, like what are the hot topics in the year? And the last couple of years, biodiversity was one that really resonated with all of us. And so it makes sense to talk about that some more, and what we're doing in Alberta here to promote and conserve the environment, and as it ties in, is it engaging and is it fun, and will our kids want to hear about it?
Well, on those two things, being engaging and being fun, and I think we heard that, it's make it important, just a boring guy, there's my granddad up there speaking. But talk about some of the ways the students get to experience stuff hands-on, because it's not just a bunch of panel presentations, right?
So at the conference, we really encourage participation by the students. And so we talk a lot about asking kids to get involved. And so we have these amazing bowls of candy. And I don't know if you guys were attending a couple of years ago, but students figure out pretty soon that if they answer questions from the speaker or ask the questions of the speaker, they get some candy out. So we really try to make that fun and engaging. The conference is for kids, and it's supposed to be a place where they can ask the questions that are relevant to them. And then the other thing that we do is that we also play an amazing passport game. So we have amazing prizes like Beats headphones and record players, because, hey, I'm a girl of the 80s, record players are back in, and vinyl. And so we play a passport game where kids can then talk to our exhibitors and ask even more questions. Sometimes our speakers are behind the tables at the exhibit hall, and then the kids can even ask more questions, which I find really amazing, because if they go to a session and have a chance to engage with the speaker, and then afterwards have a chance to talk to them again, they can really dig deep into what they want to know. And from there, it's a natural conversation too, as Steve was saying about jobs of the future. Then kids, it's a natural conversation to go from, what are the innovation, what's the tech, what's going on in the environment, to, can I make this for a future? Mm-hmm. And can I see myself in Alberta working, and by extension in Canada, on these issues.
Perfect. And I'm going to get you to come back after I'm going to go to Steve here with the follow-up question, but I'm going to get you to reflect on our sponsors. And a really important thing is we have sponsors who do not try to influence our content, right? That's an important distinction, right, in terms of...
Oh my gosh.
Just save that one up for the next 20 minutes after Steve talks. But how important for teachers, and speaking, you're a board member, so you have the inside baseball view on it, but speaking on behalf of your profession, which is under a lot of strain in Alberta in terms of all the issues we know about classroom size and complexity and these things, how is it important to have a resource like the 10 Peaks Conference and our learning library and all the things that bring the headlines to life in real time, for teachers and students, or, because the Alberta curriculum, as all curriculums everywhere, has a process in terms of, we provide the context that brings it to life in real time.
It's critical that we provide not only resources, but PD for our teachers. And 10 Peaks does a good job of doing that. They also provide a one-day rich experience for teachers that they don't have to prep for. It's free, and it's multi-perspective, and it's got themes. And so you can pick and choose which theme your students can pick their themes. I also appreciate that there are resources provided by 10 Peaks. They have curriculum developed, and they have contests. I participated in 2 contests so far, innovation contest, and then they also have a tree planting contest that they, I forget the partnership.
Project Forest.
Project Forest, thank you. And it just encourages this hands-on application of what they've learned at the conference. And this year, we're hoping to provide teachers with some PD and providing them with a tour and some hands-on workshops at our school. What also has not been mentioned is that Stein has participated in this as well, is that 10 Peaks is now one of the forerunners at providing summer camps for robotic students or robotic elementary and up and high and junior high kids. And next year we're going to maybe tackle the high school students as well. So again, what's this doing is providing a better student that walks into my robotics class. They've already gained some experience. It provides teachers with resources, and it provides teachers with the PD that they desperately need.
Perfect. That's well said. And so we've got a few minutes left here, and I'm looking at Brock and Libby and Stein, and because we want to end. This is a panel to hear your voices, and we're just wrapping context around it. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on how you talk about this stuff in your peer groups with each other, how you spoke with your peers in Brazil, Stein, how you speak with your fellow students, and how you talk about these things, and doing it in a way that saying to some of the older folks in the room like me and Dagmar and Steve and the audience around how we should tune our ears to listen differently, perhaps, right, in terms of, because sometimes adults aren't the best listeners in the world, seriously, right? My kids won't wear the t-shirt that I give them that says, the older I get, the smarter my dad is, but sometimes I realize that I learn when I listen differently from them. And so that's the setup for your last 5 minutes. But I do think, Dagmar, we've got two things I want you to illuminate. One, it's just not the 525 students. We could fill Red Deer Polytechnic. It's the fire marshal that doesn't let us go beyond that. And we've got a lot of online. Just reflect on that. But also reflect on the caliber of some of our sponsoring companies and organizations too. And that'll give the folks a chance to sort of reflect on the big questions I've asked.
Well, 10 Peaks lives and dies, of course. We're a non-for-profit, so we really appreciate the support of all of our sponsors. And our sponsors, we solicit for sponsorship all year from all the breadth and depth of all the organizations that are involved. So we have organizations that are what I call traditional oil and gas, that are producing low-emission oil and gas. We also have non-for-profits that are in the environmental space. We also have speakers that come from alternative energy, and each of them are given the opportunity to make a sponsorship donation to 10 Peaks because, of course, as the conference is free to students and their teachers, the funds to hold it all comes from somewhere. And so they are very generous. And we couldn't do it without them. I'm very grateful for everyone's support. And to your earlier point about it before, we talk about climate change all the time in our conference, in our newsletters, and so forth. And what we talk about at 10 Peaks is a conversation that it's energy and the environment. Mm-hmm. It is not energy or the environment. We showcase positive stories. Oh my goodness, and we have many good news stories. I work in the oil and gas industry, so it comes by naturally to me, but there are some fantastic organizations that are all working on the same thing. And I feel it's a really good place to hold these conversations so that students, as Libby was saying, is that sometimes it's very overwhelming about what isn't or isn't being done or isn't being done enough. But our conference, I always hope that it provides a story of hope and right. actions that people can take today and what is going on in Alberta and by extension in Canada to reduce our emissions so that when the students leave, they have a new fresh perspective on what is being done, what they can do, how they can possibly be a part of it for the future. So that's what our sponsors allow us to do, is to have good conversations on energy, environment, and climate.
Perfect. Well put. Well put. Okay, Stein, we're going to start with you, and then we'll go to Brock, and then Libby gets the last word. But really importantly, just sort of help us understand how you talk about this, and how and be direct with us and say how you hope adults would listen. Your teachers, your parents, your neighbors, your uncles and aunts. How should we listen differently?
Well, first of all, I would like to say these programs, they are nice starts to learning about things that we can do later on in life for a job. They give us a good introduction to the things that we're learning, and they give us a little bit of a basis for when we go into post-secondary.
So so what, and you've already alluded to it before in terms of the what we can do better with our conference content and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But just give us 10, 20 seconds of how the things you say to your peers when adults aren't listening that you wish adults would be listening to. And I realize you guys are adults. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No. That makes sense. Yeah, like I said before, you guys should be telling kids more that it's easy. I do say this around my friends. The stuff that we do, it's not hard stuff. It just takes time and effort. I really wish that that would be said more often.
Perfect.
That is a really good.
You're setting a high bar for Brock and Libby here, Stein. Thank you for that. Okay, Brock.
In terms of getting adults to listen, one thing, like one example I like to bring up is that like some days, I'm helping to work the market where we're selling our products, and like this year when we were getting ready, or when we were advertising the manifesto, there was bound to be a couple of these. There was two adults that walked by. They seemed interested in what we had to say. Then we mentioned climate change. They're like, "Oh, it's that stuff? Screw it!" And it just walked away. And I'd like to bring up a comparison my dad used. In terms of getting adults to listen, I like for adults who either like don't support climate change or just straight up don't believe it exists, it'd be better to shift it from help us with climate change education and stuff, and like shift it over to to something a little more personal. Like for example, like, oh, would you like to support this action that's going to help you breathe cleaner air? Lower the price of groceries, stuff like that. And I believe it's really important to overall climate change is the big issue, but climate change it is also to identify all of the little things that climate change affects, and I believe that can also help bring a greater connection with people.
That's really well said, and because there is a relationship between the price of produce in the supermarket and climate dynamics, absolutely right. And the more my advice to you would be just shout louder at deafened adults. So last word to you, Libby. Big bar, I know, but...
Yeah, they both said it really well. I think adults, they end up underestimating youth a lot. And then we open our mouths and they're like, whoa, but So I went to COP, right? And I stayed with the 32 other students. And this year was the first year that I think they had middle school students in there. There was 2 13-year-olds, I believe. And the one 13-year-old was staying in my room, and I had a conversation with her, and she said, when I first came here, I was so nervous, I was so scared, and I didn't think I was going to do anything. But by the end of it, you could see the empowerment, and you could see the change, and it's just like, I think adults underestimate us so much that we underestimate ourselves, and like he said, effort and time is not scary. It's good. It's amazing, and we're capable of it. And I think to get adults to listen, we might have to kick into gear a little bit and show that we're capable. Yeah.
I can't think of a more powerful perspective to end the conversation on. So Steve, Libby, Brock, Dagmar, and Stein, thank you guys very much, and good luck with your careers, and we hope to see you at Red Deer in October, right? So thanks,
you.
everybody. Okay.
I'd like to say a big thank you to Corinne for hosting this, and to you, Bill, for being our moderator. And if you want to get a hold of us, 10peaks.ca or Ecovision, lchsecovision.weebly.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. So, thank you, audience. To be or not to be, Stein. You can write that down and use it on your T-shirts.
You guys want the, you guys want this back,
Yeah.
or?
Well, yeah.
Do you have any last closing comments, Stein? Just
No, I'm just wondering if we're still need to say something.
No.
It says that we're still on air.
Oh, they'll edit it. We're going into climate karaoke session next.
I do want to say thank you to my 3 students. They put a lot of extra time and effort into preparing for this panel discussion. And both Brock and Libby were sick after their trip, and